Hello, welcome back to Casablanca. This is the 40th episode, which of course means it's a double episode. And this week, I am covering The Ring and Ringu, the Japanese original that inspired the American remake in 2002. So, The Ring is a 2002 horror film directed by Gore Verbinski. It was written by Ehren Kruger and starring Naomi Watts, Martin Henderson, and David Dorfman, and is a remake of The Ring, Ringu. Sometimes that one is referred to as Ring, which, it's Ringu. It was a 1998 Japanese horror film directed by Hideo Nakata and starring Nanako Matsushima, Hiroyuki Sanada, and Rikiya Ōtaka. I did not practice that before. I probably should have practiced those names before I started recording. Anyway, it was both films are based on a 1991 novel called Ring by Koji Suzuki. And I started listening to the audiobook of Ring, and also there's not an official audiobook, or at least not in English. I found there's a guy on YouTube. He posts himself, it's a trilogy, and he posts himself reading each chapter, and I think he's done the entire trilogy, or at least he's partway through the third one. It's an ongoing thing. It seems like I started listening to the first one, I got about 2 or 3 chapters in, and I was like, this is nothing like the movies, so I stopped. I was gonna try to compare. I was gonna because I watched both movies, and then I would listen to the audiobook, and I was going to compare and be like, oh, so in the book this happens, and then in the movie this happens. But then I got 2 or 3 chapters in, and I was like, yeah, I don't see the connection. I mean, I see the connection, but it's more like the American remake was inspired by the movie and the Japanese movie, and then that one was just kind of, it took inspiration from the book. Anyway, it's kind of like how Exodus Gods and Kings is not an adaptation of the Book of Exodus. It's more like a reimagining of the Ten Commandments. Anyway, I think this is the most notes I ever have for any episode. I actually have to scroll quite a ways. Normally, it's on one page. Because the way I do notes, I don't do full detailed notes. I literally, the first note is, Katie is a good actor. I know what that means. You don't know what that means. So, okay, so I will start by talking about the opening of The Ring, obviously, and what I mean by Katie is a good actor. The actor playing the character of Katie, she's really good. It's a throwaway line. It's a throwaway role, basically. Just the opening kill. And she actually looks terrified when she's explaining, oh, we saw this tape. It's listen to me! And it's she goes from laughing with her friend to her friend's have you heard about this tape that kills you when you watch it? And suddenly she gets super serious, we went to the cabin last week and we saw this thing and yeah, I was like, wow. I had seen this movie before, obviously, when it first came out, and I've seen it a bunch of times, and I never really paid attention, because I'm thinking, opening kill, it's a throwaway line, don't really pay attention to it, and so this time I was, actually paying attention, and I was like, wow, she's a really good actor. Also, after she dies, when they go back and talk about how she died, they say that she died at 10 p.m., which is when she saw the tape. She saw the tape at 10 p.m. and she died at 10 p.m. But that can't be, because when they look at the clock, it's they're like, it's 10. I saw it at 10. It's at 10. And so a few minutes go by. She goes down her mom calls, which, by the way, I still laugh at that scene when the phone ringing and they're like, the tape's real. And then the friend answers and it's like, slowly hands the phone to her. Hello? Hi, Mom. Tension breaker. But like that whole scene in the kitchen lasts like 5 minutes, so she couldn't have died at 10. Anyway, cut to when Rachel is in the cabin watching the tape, and I did a TikTok on this where I don't know if it's a Mandela effect or what, but like it's common. Like everyone knows the line. It's "You're gonna die in 7 days." Everyone says it. Like the Scary Movie 3 used it. They made jokes about it. Like, "You're gonna die in 7 days." I'm gonna die on Monday? Yes. No, that's 7 business days. Like, yeah, it's a well-known thing, but that's not what's said. Rachel watches the tape, the phone rings, she picks it up. 7 days. That's it. Like, seven days what? It could literally mean anything. And, yeah. So, I guess, like, it mentally tells you that you're gonna die in 7 days, and you hear 7 days and you automatically know what it means whenever like you're the one who hears it. But then it cuts to her starting this investigation, like, freaking out, and obviously nobody will believe her. So she makes a copy, shows Noah, who is it doesn't reveal right away who he is. It's just somebody she knows, and he's good at like the video and audio and all of that stuff. Oh, and she's a reporter. That's why she's reporting. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Katie at the beginning is her niece. And her son Aiden was her best friend, was Katie's best friend. I am really bad at storytelling, if you haven't noticed. You've made it 40 episodes in, plus like 50-something episodes on Digressor. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm not good at storytelling. I mean, the name of that other podcast is literally The Digressor, for a reason. Anyway, so she shows Noah the tape, and while she's watching it, because she doesn't want to watch it again, she stands on the balcony of her apartment, which is, I don't know what city this is supposed to be. I think it's Seattle, but like I don't know if Seattle really looks like this. It kind of makes me think of North Korea, like the bland gray buildings. Like when I see like pictures and video of North Korea, that's basically what I think of. That's basically what I see when I see pictures of North Korea, is like just the plain gray buildings. Everything has this grayish look to it. And so she stands on this balcony, and for a minute, I don't know if it's intentional, but like it makes me think of Rear Window. Like she's just standing on the balcony, and it kind of, I don't even think there's music. It just like it goes from window to window, and you get like a little mini story going on where you see like a mother and child watching a TV while they're eating breakfast or whatever meal that is, and then it pans over to another window, and it's this guy sitting alone watching TV, and it shows a few other windows, and I think the running theme there is they're all watching TV. It's the first time I've ever really noticed that scene, so like I never really picked up on like anything other than, oh, they're all watching TV. Everyone's watching TV. So anyway, Noah doesn't get the call. Like so the phone does ring, but they don't pick up, and a voicemail's left, and she doesn't listen to it. She deletes it, which I think that's important. I will explain why that's important when I get to Ringu. I think that's a reference to Ringu. Maybe not directly, but I will get to that when I get to that. So they start doing research into the tape, and they find a lighthouse. They notice a lighthouse. There's like a hidden part of the footage, and I don't know how realistic this is. They like move the tape to the side, and there's like more footage off to the side. I think what they're implying at one point is it's like they're watching it on the old monitors, the old TVs, or they're square. And I think they were implying that it is intended for kind of like a modern TV, like a widescreen TV. Because like I think at one point Noah's like, it's not made for like this type of TV because there's more off to the side, and then so they like move the footage and it like slides over and they see a lighthouse, which becomes an important part of the story. Well, not necessarily like the lighthouse itself, like they don't go to the lighthouse, but like that leads them to where they need to go, because they look up the lighthouse and they find it. And in the movie, it's called Mosco Island Lighthouse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I think it only shows the name. I don't know if they actually say it. But in reality, it is a lighthouse in Oregon called Yaquina Head Lighthouse. Again, I did a quick Google search of that. It might not even be accurate, but that is a real lighthouse. Obviously, they didn't like build a lighthouse just to pan over it, but that's a lighthouse in Oregon, which actually that kind of makes sense, because if it's the movie's set in Seattle, and Oregon's just south of there, so why didn't they just call it by its name? They made up an island. Yeah, but there is a plot twist in this movie I never really picked up on. I never picked up on this plot twist until this time. I never knew the connection between Noah and Rachel and Aiden, because I just thought, oh, Noah's this random guy and like they like each other or something. They fall in love at the end, as the trope is. But then this time I'm watching it and I noticed something, a very major thing that I think I'm the only person that has watched this that didn't pick up on it, where she walks in on Aiden finishing the tape, and she's obviously freaked out because, you know, Aiden's watched this killer tape, and then she calls Noah and she's like, he's seen the tape, and he's like, who? And she goes, our son. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Where did this detail come from? I missed that. That leads her to actually go to the island with the lighthouse. And she has to take a ferry. And something I never really thought about. There's a lot about this movie I never really thought about until this time. I wrote, oh, smart, folder with loose papers on the side of a ferry on a windy day. Because she has a folder with important documents related to this case, and they are just kind of blowing in the wind as she's holding him down, and she's on the side of a ferry, and if it's not like she's in a park where, like, if it blows away she could just kind of chase after it. If it blows away, she loses it, it goes into the water and she's never getting that back. But that also is the scene I consider to be a very terrifying scene, because even now, this time, I knew it was coming, and it was still like, oh, this is not fun to watch. It's the horse scene, and it has like a slow build, which something I like about this movie, and I like when movies do this. They don't rush everything. It has like a slow build where like it builds the story and it doesn't just like jump scare you to death. And they easily could have just had like, she sees the horse, it freaks out, escapes, and then runs and goes off the side in like a minute. But like it's like a 5-minute scene where she's like, okay, first off, she tries 3 times to pet this horse. It's clearly freaked out. Like, she tries the first time, she reaches into the little cage thing, and it, like, pulls back, and she pulls her hand back. I would have stopped there. No, she tries 2 more times. Both times, it freaks out. And it ends up escaping from its cage pin thingy, and running the length of the boat, and jumping off the side, and you see it floating down the side of the ferry, which honestly I think the horse is staying in place because the ferry's actually moving. So it's not that the horse is moving back, it's that the horse is staying still and the ferry's moving. And then like everyone on the ferry runs to the back, and they don't, I think any other horror film would have like cut to like in the water and you actually see the horse get chopped to pieces. In this one, without really showing anything, it is very graphic, where it shows the water behind the ferry and you hear the horse give like a pained neigh sound, and then suddenly there's a lot of blood. A lot is implied without really showing anything. I mean, what else could be going on? I mean, I can't even... when did I see this? I saw this... I forgot how old I was. It was 2002. I was 13-ish when this came out. And 13 or 14, I don't know, one of those. Imagine if I turned around and was like, what happened to the horse? Of course, at that age, I should have... Okay, my little brother saw this movie, and if I was 13, he would have been 2, so I don't think he saw this. So after the horse scene, it cuts to Noah at like a hospital or something, but like between the scene, like when it cuts to him, there's a flash of the ring, and I love that because I noticed it the first time. I watched it with my family. There was like 8 or 9 of us. I think there's 8 of us. Again, my little brother didn't watch. I cut that part out. There was 8 of us. There were 7 of us watching it. I was the only one that noticed it because I turned around and I was like, did you see that? And they were like, yeah, we saw the horse die. And I'm like, no, they showed the ring. And they're like, no, it didn't. So they like rewound the tape because it was a VCR at the time. Yes, it was a VHS. That's how long ago I saw this. It was on VHS. I saw this when VHS was relevant. I feel old. I saw a TikTok the other day. There was this girl. She was like, she bought this radio. And she said, the guy that sold it to me said that it plays cassette. I don't know what a cassette is. He said it was a type of tape, but like, do you need a tape to hold it together? And I was like, no, it's not cassette. It's not cassette. And, it goes through a whole thing with her. It's just like a little investigation with her, like going around talking to people on the island. Namely, like there's like a doctor she talks to that gives information. She also talks to the father of the girl in the tape, whose name turns out to be Samara Morgan, which obviously I knew that. And it was a really disturbing scene because whenever she goes back to talk to him again, he kills himself in a very disturbing way, especially for a 13-year-old. Why did my parents let me watch this? Well, my sisters and I watched this because some of my sisters are younger than me. So we all watched this together as a family. A big family film. The Ring. Then it's revealed, though, that Samara Morgan was basically abused. And it's always implied that, like, there was something more to Samara. Like, she was killed because she was demonic. There was something wrong with her. And it showed, the tapes of her being interrogated or interviewed by the psychiatrist or whatever. And she's like, oh, they all hurt. Or whatever she said. I forgot what she said, but it's like... And she, like, looks at the screen and is like, oh, but I liked it. I like causing pain, or I don't remember what you said, but it's like really disturbing for a little kid to say that. I'd be like, I'm going to put a bag over your head and drop you down a well. That's suspiciously specific. Which, obviously, that's what happened to her mother, who you find out in the sequel wasn't her birth mother. She was an adopted person, which I think they say that in the movie. But, yeah. And so a lot of the things in the tape start to make sense when you realize that the famous Ring logo is her looking up at the lid closing over the opening, which now that I think about it, it kind of doesn't make sense for there to be light coming in all the way around. Wouldn't the lid drop into the well? Like, I didn't even think of that until now. I just kind of accepted it because it's a well-known logo and I'm so used to it. And yeah, I'm not sure, like, the context of how the film was made. Like, I don't think anyone walked around with a video camera, because, like, Noah even said, like, you know, the tape doesn't have the usual fingerprints that normal tapes have. Like, you can tell a lot by, like, you can tell, like, how it was made, who made it, and it doesn't have that. So it's like Samara basically, like, spawned the tape. Like, how did she make the tape? Because there's some things in the footage she couldn't have done when she was alive. Like, because she kind of died out of nowhere, so she couldn't have put the well stuff in the tape before then. So she must have made it after she died, or maybe while she died. Also, how long ago? I think they said it was 30 years ago, like, at the time. But then, like, in the third movie, they also say 30 years ago, but it clearly takes place at the time that the movie came out. But if the movie ended with because they found her body at the bottom of the well, and they raise it, and it ends with the Rachel and Noah wrapped in a blanket. Like, it's over. It's finally over. And then the credits roll. That's the end. It's over. It still would have been a good movie. But it goes to the next scene, and you're like, oh wait, why are they still going? This movie is over. They found the girl. The curse is over. Why is it still going? It's 2 scenes later, and they're still going. Why is it still going? And I think the scene that elevates this to, like, the great level that it is the last scene, because they could have, like I said, they could have just ended it when they find her body, and then the police come in. They're like, it's over, and the credits roll. It would have been a great movie. I would have loved it. People would have loved it. But that last scene, when you think it's over, the story is over, they solved it, the curse is lifted, and it's just Noah in, like, his studio thing, and the TV cuts on, and he's like, oh, that's weird. Goes over, turns it off, turns it back on. Huh. This is unusual. And then it shows the well. Like, oh, that shouldn't be there. And, yeah. She climbs out of the well, walks towards the screen, and climbs out of the screen. And kind of got overused in other movies, so, like, it's not as, like, looking back, I can see, like, this, without the context of, oh, this is now cliche, it's a trope that was done to death after this movie. You look at it now, it's like, oh, this is funny, where it has, like, the glitch effect, and she, like, jumps forward, and oh, that's so funny, but, like, no, it hadn't really been seen before. I'm sure it had been done before, but not to death like it had been now. And so, like, seeing it from the context, because I remember when I saw it for the first time, it was like, oh, this is scary. We all, like, were staring at the screen with our eyes bulging, like, this is different. And you find out, no, the curse wasn't lifted. The reason that the reason that Rachel didn't die is because she made a copy. It's something. It was a small scene. You didn't even think about it. She made a copy of the tape and had Noah watch it. And you're like, oh, of course she made a copy, because she had to, like, she made a copy for a reason. And you don't really think about it. And that's the reason she didn't die. Not because she found Samara and had her put to rest. Now, with the fear of it's not over, her son Aiden has seen the tape. She's got to do something to save him, so she basically guides his hand. I'm surprised this counts, because she's the one making the copy. She's just basically, like, she's guiding his hand, so she's making the copy, but he's I don't know. It works, I guess, because a few years later, there's a sequel. I think it came out in... I don't remember. I went ahead because I bought the trilogy, and I watched all three. And I'm not going to cover the sequels in as much depth as I did the first one. I will touch on them though. In The Ring 2, it was made, I think, 3 years later, because the first one came out in 2002 and the second one came out in, I think, 2006. And actually, I will look that up real fast. I really should have looked that up, because I should have. 2005. It came out in 2005, so 3 years later. And Aiden, the actor that played Aiden, has clearly aged up 3 years. It's very obvious that he's not 5 years old anymore. And yet, there's a line in the movie I kind of raised my eyebrows on and was like, really? You're going that route? Because supposedly, The Ring 2 takes place 6 months later. No, that kid did not have a growth spurt at age 5. But I do have one note. There is a scene where they are attacked by deers on the road. And it is a little goofy, but kind of in the context of the movie, it's a little scary. Because especially, like, you know, it's very poorly done CG. It didn't age well, and it probably looked bad at the time. I don't remember. I did see it at the time, and I remember being like, oh, this is scary. But now I was like, huh, that's kind of goofy. But there is a moment in that scene that really stood out to me, because at the beginning of that scene, when they're stopped in the road, a deer shoves its head through her window, and it shatters the glass. She's got glass showering all over her. And then a couple shots later, they start to drive off. Her window's intact. You can see the reflection. It's the glass. There's glass there. So, yeah. And then like a couple shots later, the glass is broken again. So, yeah. The Ring 2, a lot of people complained. I remember when it came out, a lot of people were like, that movie's not even scary. And I agree, it's not really scary. In fact, I still like it, because I don't think it's necessarily meant to be scary. It's more interesting. Like, you find out more about Samara's backstory, and you actually meet her birth mother, and yeah, it's more interesting than scary. It does have some messed up parts, I don't think The Ring 2 would be made now, especially since there's a scene where Rachel basically attempts to drown Aiden, and it makes sense for the context of the movie, where she's not drowning Aiden, she's drowning Samara, but Samara possesses Aiden, so if somebody walks in, I think someone does walk in, there's a whole subplot where, like, the Child Protective Services are, like, trying to investigate her. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of this movie that goes unanswered. Like, they want to question her, and they suspect her of child abuse, and they don't believe the story of ghosts. And because he has whenever Samara touches you in the dream, you have marks left on you, and it looks like she slapped him really hard on the back a few times. And so they're like, we want to keep you from your son. We have some questions from you. And she's like, leave my son alone. And she runs away. So the movie ends without them addressing that. So Rachel and Aiden aren't in the third one. So it just kind of implies that their story kind of went a different route after. It has a happy ending in the movie, but considering the unresolved plot lines, I have a feeling their life got a little more difficult after that. It's like, I'd rather face Ghost Girls rather than the CPS, especially since they don't believe the Ghost Girls side of the story. And The third one, for the longest time, I kept saying they need to make the third ring called the Ring 3D. And have Samara Morgan literally climb out of the screen. With, when you watch a movie in 3D, and you have the 3D glasses on in theaters, and she crawls out of the screen, that would have been amazing. But no, it was called Rings, which is kind of confusing because on the Ring 2, there's a short film called Rings, and it's basically a prequel to the second movie where it tells like the opening scene. It kind of like it comes in at like the end of a date, and the short film basically tells the story leading up to that. It's actually really interesting, kind of. I liked it, but I didn't know about it until after. So I should have watched Rings, the short film, first, then watched the Ring 2. But anyway, the third movie is called Rings, which it's like, oh, this is weird. It takes place in the year it came out, which I think was 20 something. It was like a couple years ago. It was like 2019, I think. In fact, I will look again because I'm gonna do that. 2017. That was older than I thought. I thought it came out a couple years ago, but 2017. 12 years after The Ring 2. It takes place in 2017. So they're still saying 30 years ago. And it was really good. It's got the guy that played David from Roseanne. I know most people would say he plays that guy in Big Bang Theory. I don't like Big Bang Theory. I forgot his name. Not Sheldon, his roommate, one of the guys. Anyway, it stars him as this professor. He watches the tape, and then I misremembered what it was about. Like, I saw it, and for some reason, I remember it being about somebody uploads the video to YouTube, and now, like, people around the world are getting cursed. And that's what I remember it being about. But then, so like, I told one of my roommates, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool, it's about this. He's like, I didn't know they made a third one. I'm like, yeah, it's about this. And then I watch it, and it's about him. He's a professor, and he basically has this underground cult club thing where it's kind of an experiment in like the afterlife, and just to prove the evidence of an afterlife, where he has like timers for everyone, and they have somebody lined up to, you have 7 days to make a copy. And what they do is it's no longer just a tape. They have files. You have to copy and paste the file and show it to somebody within 7 days. And they have a countdown. And so it's like become like a whole thing. But then the main girl, it's a completely new character. I don't think there's any returning characters except for Samara, of course. And she watches the tape. She watches the video, but hers is different. When she watches it, like, there's extra. Like, they notice that the file is like twice as big as the others, and they were like, "That's weird." So they like open it the video viewer, and they kind of scan through it, and they're like, "Wait, there's extra footage in here." So like they all turn away and have her watch it, and there's extra footage, and it's cool. I like that. I like that idea where there's more footage just for her. It like calls her out, and like for some reason she's special. I forgot why. And like I said when I talked about the ring, how it's the well. You're looking up at the bottom at the opening of the well. I noticed when they first started watching her video that the ring looks different, and I was like, oh, okay, they had to modernize it, of course. But no. It's different. It's not the bottom of a well. They're looking up at the bottom of a bell in a church, and it looks cool. I was like, oh, they made it look cooler. And I still like the old ring icon logo, but the new one looks really cool. And the story is also really interesting. Again, people are like, it's not even scary. Like, again, it's more interesting than scary. And the first movie, also, like, it's not really scary except for the horse scene and that surprise twist ending. It's more interesting. The Ring trilogy, the Ring story is more interesting than scary. It is scary at parts, but it's more interesting than scary. I don't know if they're going to do a fourth one, which I don't think they should, unless they do the idea that I thought the third one was, where they upload it. Somebody uploads it to YouTube, and there's people all over the world that get cursed. I think that would be good. But the way the third one ends, it has a very conclusive ending, where they find her body again. They find the skeleton, and they basically cremate it to release her spirit. And it has, unlike the first one where, they find her body, you think the curse is lifted. Oops, no, it's not. This time, they cremate her remains, and that's it. It has a very conclusive, satisfying ending. So if they make a fourth one, it'll ruin that. I do have one little complaint about Rings. The opening kill. The people involved are kind of stupid. What I mean by that is, okay, so they had seen this tape, they knew they were going to die in 7 days, and they knew that it was going to be this night, and they knew that, like, they were counting down, so they know they're going to die at this exact time. So what do? They hop on a plane, which is, of course, the safest place you could possibly be. What's the worst that could... It happens. Yeah, what you think happens. However, I think I'm misremembering, because I remember, like, in the trailer, and I remember when I watched it the first time, it actually shows the plane going down. But then, like, in the actual movie, it just, like, shows the plane, like, destabilizing, and it shows the cockpit where they're like, what's going on? And then, like, it, like, pans down the aisle, and, like, each screen shows the well, and then it, like, cuts away. It kind of implies that the plane went down. It does say later, like, oh, the plane went down. So that's just a little nitpick I have. Like, you're going to die. Why are you getting on a plane? It looks like there's only 2 people on the plane that had seen the tape. So there's like 100 people on that plane, and their deaths are on your hands. It's not like every single person on that plane had seen the tape. What would have been the odds of that? But because these 2 selfish people got on the plane after having seen the tape a week ago, all these people died. So, yeah. But anyway, going on to Ringu. I have fewer notes. I literally have 4 notes. So, in Ringu, it basically follows this same premise. It has the same opening. Some of the lines are even the same from the American one. So, like, yeah, when they did a remake, they basically copied some scenes word for word. But, like, when they did a remake, they basically changed it. It's the same basic premise, but then they changed a few things. It's a whole new story. So, like, if you're expecting a shot-for-shot... I was going to say remake, but it's not the remake. So if you're expecting the American one to be a shot-for-shot remake, it's not. You kind of know where it's headed. It has the same thing. Same things happen, but, like, differently. It's hard to explain. The the ghost girl in that, her name is Sadako Yamamura. I know Sadako because everyone knows Sadako. And so, yeah. I liked it. I really liked it. And everyone, because I think it was overhyped. I know that sounds bad. I had seen it long ago, but I remember I saw it late at night, and I think I fell asleep not because it was boring, but because it was late at night. This time I watched it, like, early in the evening. And so I remember everyone saying, "Oh, it's even scarier than The Ring. It is so much scarier." And yeah, there are moments where it is. There are so like I can only compare it scene by scene. Like there's like, oh, the original did this aspect better. The American one did that one better. I know there's other versions. Like I know there's a Korean version, and there's like on the Wikipedia it says there's like different countries did their own remake, but I only watched these two. Well, 4 technically, because I did. There's also a whole series for Ringu, and I didn't watch those. So I bought the limited edition Blu-ray. It just came out last month. It was limited edition 4K Blu-ray, and yeah, there was 2 different versions. One with just Ringu, and another one with all of them. That one was like $100, and I didn't have that, so I just got the one. There is a movie on YouTube. That I thought was really cool. Let's see. There is a crossover with because there's Ju-on. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. It was remade in America as The Grudge, and there was the name of the ghost girl in that one is Kayako. And in 2016 there was a movie called Sadako versus Kayako, which is basically The Ring versus The Grudge. And I saw it, and because I had seen Ringu and I seen Ju-on, and Ju-on too, because when it was remade in America as The Grudge, they took the first 2 Ju-on movies and smashed them together into one movie. And so I've seen a lot of people complain that The Grudge is a big mess and it doesn't make any sense. That is why. It is 2 movies merged into one, and in this case the Japanese version is better because they actually tell the story in a more cohesive manner, and yeah, it's so much better. And so when I watched it, I think it's on YouTube. For some reason it's free on YouTube. Let me see, external links. Yeah, I don't know if it doesn't show it anymore. I will look it up actually right now. If it's on YouTube, I will post it in the show notes. In fact, I'm gonna. Okay, so that is still on YouTube. I will post the link to that in the show notes because it is really good, and because I had seen Ringu and Ju-on 1 and 2. You know how Freddy vs. Jason. You know how Freddy vs. Jason took elements of Elm Street and Friday the 13th and made them fit together to make the story of the 2 of them meeting make sense? They did the same thing with this. They took the video of The Ring and the curse in The Grudge and smashed them together to make it make sense, and it was actually really good, and I highly recommend watching it. Though I think the only reason I liked it as much was I probably would have liked it anyway, but I think what really helped is the fact I did see the originals, and at least the first ones. I don't know, I've never seen the rest of the series, because I know there's a whole Ju-on series, a whole Ringu series, and I don't know if there was more that played into the crossover, but I did see the first ones, so I was able to follow along with the crossover, and it was really good, and I loved it. So, about the Sadako versus Kayako, it was originally, there was in 2015, there was a teaser trailer released as an April Fool's prank, but the reception of it was so positive that the people behind them were like, what if we actually do this? And so they did it, and it was very well received. the reception, it has, well, okay, it says on the Rotten Tomatoes it has 48%, but the fans that I saw, like, every time I see it talked about, the fans are like, oh, it was amazing, it was great, it was, I was going to say, the audience score is probably even higher. Nope, audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 27%, so who cares about Rotten Tomatoes? The people I've talked to about it have loved it, and I love it, and I highly recommend it. So, yeah, with that, I will say... Wait, I didn't get to my notes. So, oh yeah, so the video in The Ring, the video is shorter, yet it's creepier than the American version because it actually looks like a home video, while the American version just kind of looks produced. Like, the American version doesn't even look like a student film. It actually looks like it was produced by a big budget studio because, it was. And the version in Ringu actually looks like it was like a student film that someone found in a drawer somewhere. Like, oh, what's this? And so that just kind of adds to the creepy factor. And yeah, like, it is shorter. It's only like 30 seconds long. And elements of the video does play into the real world as it does in the Ring. Namely, there's a figure with something like a bag or something over their head, and it's always pointing at something important, and it just keeps popping up throughout the film. It's really creepy. Like, who is that? I think it's implied to be the father, but then later it's somebody else. I don't know. And I said that there was something that happened in The Ring I would bring up again in Ringu. I said that Noah didn't get a call. But he did get a call, but they didn't answer it. They left a voice message. And I was going to say Naomi. Rachel, the actress was Naomi Watts. Rachel deleted the voice message without listening to it. My theory is that wasn't Samara. Or who is it? Samara? That doesn't sound like it would be Samara. That does 7 days. Whoever calls, I don't think that's who that was. It may have just been a regular phone call. Because, see, only time, I think it's the only time anybody actually calls during that movie. Like, the ghost worlds. I think whenever Aiden gets a call, I don't remember if she gets a 7 days call. She does get a call, but I remember her picking up and screaming, "Leave him alone!" And it was Rachel, oh, Noah. That's the part when she's like, he saw it, our son. And so, the reason I bring that up in Ringu, Noah doesn't believe her, or not. No, I forgot his name, and it's Kujai or something like that. I'm going to say Noah because that's what I'm used to from The Ring. So in Ringu, Noah doesn't believe her. Oh, and her name, I actually did write down her name. Reiko Asakawa. But they only call her Asakawa in the film. So she tells him what happened, and he doesn't believe her, which is what happens in The Ring. And so she makes a copy and shows him. And afterwards, he's looking at the phone. Still looking. It's not going to call there, isn't it? And so he just kind of laughs at her no phone call. I'm safe. But then it turns out later that you only get the call in the cabin. Which kind of makes sense because something that I thought was weird, and I didn't make this, I should have made this a note on The Ring, but so whenever it was Rachel's niece and her friends that went to the cabin, and the tape was on a shelf in the lobby where they rent the room, and the guy hosting the guy in charge, he basically, I guess, assigned them a room at random, and they pick the tape up, and they go to the cabin. What are the odds? Out of all the cabins there, that's the cabin that has the well that Samara was killed in. That is a little weird. In Ringu, it makes a little more sense. It looks like it's not the same premise where it's like, oh, we're going to rent a cabin out of a bunch of cabins. It's like, this is the only cabin. We're going to rent this one cabin. And so it makes a little more sense. And yeah, so the phone only rings in the cabin. So that's why he didn't get the call at Asakawa's house, is because he wasn't at the cabin. I'm sure had it cut to the cabin in that scene, the phone would have rang, but just no one picked up. So yeah, that ties more into it than in The Ring. Like, it's kind of a coincidence. Like, oh, what are the odds? Everything ties back to this cabin. But in Ringu, it makes more sense. It's like, of course it ties back to this cabin. Everything goes back to this cabin.
And then finally, the last thing, I also made a TikTok about this. Do you remember when I was talking about when Rachel got the call in The Ring? Everyone's so used to, you're gonna die in 7 days, but it doesn't say that. The voice says 7 days. Well, when it got to that scene in Ringu, I was like, all right, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna say it? Because yeah, it's got to come from somewhere. Well, Asakawa is, she watched the tape, and then she's just sitting there, and the phone rings, and she runs and picks it up, and there's no voice. There's like a whining, and then that's it. And then she just kind of looks at the time, and then she goes, 1 week. But the voice didn't say 1 week. There was just like a screeching, whiny sound. There wasn't even subtitles there. Yes, I watched it in Japanese. So, at least with The Ring, there was like added context. It's like what was being said. It's just stuff implied. So, like, when it comes between the two of them, The Ring and Ringu, I was tempted to say, oh yeah, Ringu is the better one because it's the original. And something I've noticed, I've watched a lot of the Japanese horror films that a lot of those American remakes were based on, and usually the Japanese horror version was better. Especially, I think my favorite was The Tale of Two Sisters, which was remade in America as The Uninvited. And I think The Tale of Two Sisters was probably the best. It was like, it legit gave me nightmares. It was so good. But I think in this case, I think The Ring wins out of the two of them. Mostly because I think it has like a more coherent story. And yeah. Ringu, maybe it's because I'm so used to The Ring. It's like I feel like I know where it's going, but then it does something else. And I'm like, wait, what are you doing? Like in The Ring, Rachel falls down the well. And then she's the one that solves everything. Well, there's like this whole scene where he goes down the well first and tries to like get the water up with buckets. And then like she gets worn out and passes out. And he climbs up and goes, okay, this is too much for you. You go down there and scoop the water up and I'll pull it up. And then that's when she finds the body. And I'm like, what was the point of that? That was pointless. And it just kind of like padded the film out. But they got rid of that for The Ring. And so it's just little things like that. It kind of pushes The Ring higher on my opinion. It's just kind of a more coherent story. And yeah. Anyway, I think I'll end the call. I'll end the call here. So, yes, I'll end this call by saying